Thanks for the intro and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, as the case may be. I'll be speaking today on scaling startups, right? From the initial idea phase to when it becomes a reality, and then the sustenance of it from there moving forward. I'll start by saying that with businesses generally, there is no one case suits all, right? You could but what I would say is they are the foundational things to put in place to ensure that you have the structure that sets you up for success. Um, Next slide, please. So I have the overview of the things we're going to be talking about today on the next slide. Yeah. So we'll just be running through these few things that I consider foundational, at least in my case and in my experience so far, for setting up yourself for success. Already, the moment you decide to start a business, the odds are against you. In Nigeria, for instance, there is a 16% chance they are going to succeed, right? 1 in 6 businesses succeed. So the odds are against you for many reasons, right? And at best, what structure could help you with is to ensure that you are not the one in the way of your own success. You still, no matter what the case is, you still have to go against all the market forces and the societal forces, the economic forces. But with certain strategies, you can ensure that you are well poised to face those forces. So I'll start with the first one, which is validate the idea before scaling. In the founder journey, next slide, please. All right, thanks. So in the founder journey, there is the U in capital letter that is usually very pronounced. The first thing that I would advise is to take that away, right? When you have an idea, you have to validate that idea. You have to be sure that it makes sense. You have to run it through maybe trusted people in your circle or even people in that industry where that idea is going to sit as a business, just to ensure that there is some validation that goes into it. Now, validation is not just finding out that it is going to work or not. It is also the refinement of it. It is also the input that can help you change certain aspects of it that makes it more refined, especially in the context of the industry that you're in and also the market that you plan to go into. So you have to always have a value first approach. Ensure you're creating value. So typically people say, ensure you're solving a problem. But for me, I think that creating value is not all about solving problems. There is more to value than problems. So, and I would give an example. Um, we have a lot of products that we currently use just for the sake of it. Apple is a big example, right? Typically, people would say that Apple is a marketing first company before it's a technology company. And it kind of like makes a lot of sense with the FOMO that they have created. The new devices will be released next month, and they won't be so different from what you currently own. But a lot of people will still make that switch to the newest one, even though it is only the outward look that is different from the previous device that you held. And this stems from the value that Apple has created over the years. It is not just, Apple is currently not just a phone company in the minds of those who use Apple. It is much more. It is a class signifier. It is many things to different people, right? And from a business perspective, that is good for the business. And then there are other kinds of businesses that exist. So for instance, you could have 25 food businesses in your area, right? In your city. You could have 25 food businesses. The problem of food is obviously solved, right? The problem of being able to walk into a restaurant to buy food is obviously solved. As a matter of fact, in most cases, that is a saturated market. But there is still a chance for entry for you if you are using the value first approach. And in most cases, you have to find out what your market segmentation is, the demography of the people there. Um, you have to see if the price point is good, if the quality of food is good to the price, the service that is being delivered. You have to rate that service and see if you can one up them, right, in any of these areas. You can fight for price, you can fight for service, you can fight for taste, right? But basically, whatever business it is, this could be any kind of business, there should always be a value first approach, right? And then you need to conduct lean experiments to validate demand. For most people, when they have an idea, the first thing is they start thinking, um, I need to get in money, right? I need investors. While you might need investors, that is not the first thing. The first thing is to conduct lean experiments to validate the idea that you have, right? If it's a food business, you want to do your recipe, cook with the recipe, find maybe a subset of 50 people, have them taste across your menu, right? And get their feedback. And those people are your first potential customers. If the X factor exists, right, they want to patronize you as well, right? So you need to do those lean experiments before investment. It is a very critical point. And this also would lead to you having your early adopters, because those guys that you run experiments with are your potential first customers, they're your early adopters. They will give you true feedback, right? And this would help you refine your business. So the first thing to do to set up yourself is to validate your idea before scaling. Next slide, please. And this leads us to building a strong foundation. It is extremely critical that you build a strong foundation. The foundation is everything, really. And what you want to do here is to clarify your vision, your mission, and your values, right? You have to clearly define what your values are, because your values would determine your boundaries. And once it is clearly defined, when the market presents you with certain opportunities or certain buyouts, you know what to do and what not to do in line with the values that you have preset for the business that you are running. Then you need to align with your co-founders, right? The co-founder structure is like a marriage. You guys are in it for the long haul. You guys would have your quarrels or whatnot, but it is very essential that you guys are always aligned on your goals, your equity split. So money can test any relationship. So the equity split conversation is like very important early on. Everything is predefined, everything is written down, signed, and put in place. Everybody's responsibility is clearly defined. And in terms of future dilutions, all of that is pretty defined as well. The pro rata basis for dilution and all of that. You need to ensure that that is predetermined and there's an alignment with co-founders. And in cases where you don't have like a co-founder, you still need to ensure legal and financial structures are in place. So financial structures such as um, an account mandate, who is initiating, who is just so that you have checks and balances in place to um for spending. And those checks and balances are critical at stages at the advanced stages of the business, right? You need at least one person who is checking you and who ensures that you have some level of balance, right? And these are foundational things. Next slide, please. Product market fit. A lot of companies are always looking for PMF. Um, it's difficult to find PMF, and this is where you have your work cut out. Whatever the product is, you need product market fit so that you can scale. And product market fit really is, this is the product, this is your market. The market, to a certain extent, has accepted that product. The market, to a certain extent, sees the value in that product. And that is when you start to attain PMF. And it is on top of product market fit that you then scale. So, for instance, we had my first product out in the market. In our first months post launch, we had a lot of issues, right? There was barely any non friend or non family that bought into the product in the first month, right? And at this time, we also did some marketing push. So the product was getting the faces of people. We could see our metrics in terms of visits to the website and all of that, but it wasn't converting, right? And at that time, we doubled down on marketing, right? And we knew that our work was obviously cut out at this point to find PMF. It took us another 8 to 9 months after that to realize that the product wasn't cut out exactly. Like the way the product was built was not exactly cut out for the markets that we were in. So there are two things there. In finding PMF, you need to be brutally honest with yourself, right? There are many products that would never sell. There are many products in their current iteration that would never sell, right? And there are products that from the very beginning, they do well. From the very beginning, they do well. So those are three categories. Like, and this is why you need to be brutally honest. So there are products that will never sell in the sense that that product is just not fit for the market, right? It is not going to sell. No iteration of that product is going to make it. There are products that would make it, but not in the current iteration that it is in, right? And as a decision maker, in most cases, being the founder, you have to have a level of brutal honesty with yourself for you to know when you are in either of these categories. A product that sells immediately, you can already tell. Nobody needs to tell you. The numbers are good, even if it isn't translating to revenue or profit yet. The numbers are good. The adoption is great. You can tell that this is making it. For products that will not make it in the current situation, people come, but I mean, there are issues there. You're getting feedback from them. They are dropping off. You know that you have to start getting those feedback. You have to start talking to those users. You have to start finding out why the drop-offs are happening. Then you have to start taking those lessons and iterating on the product for it to have a better chance at PMF. And then with expansion, you need to first conquer a subset before you conquer the whole. Do not set out trying to be everywhere at the same time. Streamline before you expand. If you start from a particular city focus on the city, be there, do the most that you can there, get the feedback that you can there before you start to expand. Um, Unless you have, and with products and marketing, marketing is probably the most expensive part of selling. In most cases, you don't even have the war chest to be everywhere at the same time. But for the benefit of the product, you need to have PMF in a particular locale, in a particular geographic area, right, with a particular subset of users before you start to expand. So brutal honesty is probably the most important part of finding PMF. Because there are people who double down and double down and double down, and you just know the product is never going to make it. I recently was in conversations with a startup looking for investments in the Nigerian market. And the product was for dog owners, right? Just people who own dogs. And the product is supposed to help you find other dog owners to sync walks, to sync walking dogs and stuff like that, just around dogs, right? And they had been at this since 2 years ago, 2023, but they were doubling down. Now they've gotten a lot of feedback from non-users and users, non-users that are their friends and family, and the few users that they were able to get. But they kept doubling down, thinking that there was light at the end of the tunnel. Now the thing is, for me, and that was what I told them. At best, this product will not succeed in its current situation, right? First, you're not in the market for it. This is Nigeria. You're not in the market for it. Secondly, this current situation is not going to make it. It is pretty obvious because when you start looking at your TAM, your total addressable market size, and then you start looking down, and you start drilling down, you then see that this is most likely a product that will not make it. But as users, as the founders, it is difficult to um, be brutally honest to the point that you say to yourself, this has to change. Okay, so I've just been told I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to rush through. So next slide, please. So you need to assemble the right team. Your team is the foundation, is part of the foundational things that you need because you can't build alone. You can't go so far alone. So you need to bring on the right people. You need to hire for mission and train for skill. You need to use generalists at the beginning and specialists later. So you need at the beginning, you need people that can do more than one thing. Then eventually you can start hiring specialists. Then you need to build an impact-driven culture. Culture is really important with companies because your culture is who you are, right? Across your team, if you have a team of 100 people, the culture defines who each of those 100 people are. Your culture is what people are doing when you're not there. Like your culture is how people are pushing when you can't. So assembling the right team is very, very important. Next slide, please. Leveraging smart growth channels. So at the beginning, you want to focus on low cost acquisition methods. You want to do referral incentives. Whoever is using your product now, you want to incentivize them to tell someone about it. And then you want to form strategic alliances. Partnerships are very important. On the back of partnerships, you can do things that you normally would have to spend a lot more to achieve. So partnerships are very important, partnering with other companies, with organizations, depending on the markets that you're in. Next slide, please. Build systems early. So this is very important. You need to automate repetitive tasks, right? Then you need to track the right metrics. No need to track vanity metrics. If at the end of the day it doesn't contribute to your bottom line, there's no point tracking it, right? And this is also down to being brutally honest with yourself. Then you need to document processes for knowledge sharing. When people leave and new people join, there has to be a process in place so that no knowledge is lost there. Next slide, please. Strategic funding. my advice always is to bootstrap until traction is proven, right? That you have more leverage when you have traction, right? And you can walk away when you have traction. You really want to go into negotiations about investments with some leverage. And bootstrapping until you have traction gives you that leverage. Then you want to seek mission-aligned investors. You don't want investors that would come in and after a while they're trying to push you to go somewhere else, like in sense of business direction. So you want investors that are actually mission-aligned. And also, at the early stages, you also want to consider non-dilutive funding sources like grants, apply for as many grants as you can, do the pitches wherever you need to for free money. It is very important that you hold your equities in the early stages. Next slide, please. Scale impact without losing soul. You need to measure what impact means to you every now and then. You need to avoid mission drift. This is what you started doing. Stick to it until you are sure that this is no longer the path, right? Do not be everywhere at the same time. Have extreme focus on the particular thing you're chasing and stick to it for as long as you can. Then localize before globalizing. I've spoken on this before. You want to conquer your own immediate environment first before you start expanding. Next slide, please. Maintain founder resilience. Being a founder is difficult, right? Today you can be on a very high in terms of your emotions, and then tomorrow it's a very low, right? There are days when I've woken up and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore, right? And there are days when I'm like, oh, let's go conquer. You need to have a high level of resilience to ensure that you can keep things going. And this, in this case, having a co-founder helps because if you have a load, the other person will probably help you through those moments, and then vice versa. As much as possible, join founder networks. There are a lot of networks that you can join where you meet other founders. You guys can share stories, share encouragements, and all of that to keep you going because it's a very difficult journey. And in some cases, it is really long before it becomes rewarding. Lastly, you need to balance urgency with patience. So, as founders, you are mostly intense. You want things and you want them now. You want things done now. While that is very important for for you as a founder because you don't really have time, you also have to learn when to be patient. Like there are times to push, and there are times to sit back. That balance is very important, especially when you're leading a team. You don't want them to think that the work they've put in is not appreciated. And at the same time, you don't want them to be slack. So it is important to find that balance as well. I really wish I had more time to drill in and share certain stories, but given the time, I would have to call it a day here. Thank you very much, and thanks to the organizers for this invite. I'm happy to take a few questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing such profound insight with us, even on the practical strategies for founders creating lasting change. Thank you. And one of the things that really stood out for me was when you mentioned the value first approach, right? It's about value. It's not first about the money. Of course, it's a profit business, but then it's more about the value we're actually creating. And then you also said we should remove the you, right? So it's not necessarily about the person that asked the idea. And then one last thing was when you said be brutally honest with yourself. Sometimes emotions might, want to come into play, and you not wanting to be honest with yourself. And that's why we need people that can be honest, with us. When you mentioned about people that would try out your business, your product, and then they can actually be honest with you and give you those important feedbacks. And so thank you so much. And lastly, the need for patience, of course, balancing urgency with patience. Thank you. And I'll be asking just one question in the chat, which says, what are the founders networks you recommend and how can one connect to them? Thank you.
Okay, so when one of the best founder networks that I think would help you, not just from a networking perspective, but also a knowledge gaining is Y Combinator, right? You can join Y Combinator Startup School. It is free to join. You don't need to go through any wait process. You can just join. There are other people like you who are starting things there. So do the startup school for one. There are also other founder networks. Within my context in Nigeria, we have many founder networks led by certain businesses that are built, people who have gone to build other things. So we have the Paystack Mafia, for instance, they have their founders network. You can be a part of that if you're in Nigeria. If you follow these companies on social media, you would always see when they have events. You can go for these events. There are many NGOs in Nigeria that see to helping founders. You can join any of those as well if you are searching, right? But Y Combinator is global. You can join the startup school anytime. I went through the startup school of Y Combinator and I highly recommend.
Thank you so much. And so thank you for sharing those examples, of the founders network that we can even join that you recommend. And we really appreciate you sharing those important things with us today.